There is a specific kind of silence that sits inside the cabin of a Range Rover. It isn't just the absence of noise, it is a heavy, insulated barrier against the world outside. When you close that door, you are sealing yourself into a fortress of hand-stitched leather and walnut veneer, a place where the chaos of traffic and the grit of the road simply do not exist. It feels invincible. It feels regal. For decades, this machine has been the ultimate shorthand for success, a vehicle that says you have arrived, not just at your destination, but in life. It is the chariot of royalty, celebrities, and titans of industry. But there is a tragedy hidden beneath that polished hood, a slow-motion catastrophe that begins the moment you drive off the lot. Because while the Range Rover is designed to conquer every terrain on Earth, there is one thing it cannot conquer: its own reputation. You are not just buying a car, you are buying into a financial freefall, a depreciation curve so steep it looks less like a market trend and more like a cliff edge. The question isn't why these cars are so expensive to buy. The question is why, just a few years later, they become almost impossible to give away. To understand the crisis, you first have to understand the seduction. No one buys a Range Rover because they ran the numbers and decided it was the pragmatic choice. You buy one because of how it makes you feel. There is a psychological mastery at play here. Land Rover has spent half a century cultivating an image of rugged sophistication. It is the only vehicle that looks equally at home covered in mud on a country estate and parked under the lights of a five-star hotel. That duality is intoxicating. It promises the buyer that they are capable of anything, that they are masters of their domain. And for the first year or two, the car delivers on that promise. The ride quality is ethereal. The power delivery is effortless. You feel protected, elevated, above the common commuter. It is easy to see why someone would sign a check for 6 figures without hesitation. You are purchasing a feeling of supremacy. But that feeling has an expiration date, and it usually coincides with the expiration of the factory warranty. This is where the dream collides violently with the reality of modern engineering. You see, the very things that make a Range Rover feel magical, the adaptive air suspension that floats over bumps, the complex electronics that manage every wheel independently, the labyrinth of sensors keeping the world at BR, the exact things that doom it. In the pursuit of absolute luxury and off-road dominance, the engineers at Jaguar Land Rover created systems of staggering complexity. And in the world of mechanics, complexity is the enemy of longevity. Every additional sensor, every motorized vent, every computer module is a potential point of failure. And in a Range Rover, there are thousands of them. When we talk about engineering failure in this context, we aren't necessarily talking about a car that doesn't work when it's new. We are talking about a failure of foresight. The engineering philosophy seems to prioritize immediate performance and showroom wow factor over sustained durability. Consider the air suspension system. When it works, it is brilliant. It allows a 3-ton SUV to handle like a sports sedan and then lift itself up to wade through a river. But air struts leak, compressors burn out, height sensors corrode. On a simpler vehicle, a suspension repair might cost a few $100s. On a Range Rover, it is a 4-figure surgery that requires specialized software just to calibrate.
This creates a terrifying dynamic for the second and third owners. The person who buys the car new doesn't care about reliability. They lease it for 3 years and hand the keys back before the problems start. But once that car hits the used market, the math changes drastically. Suddenly you have a vehicle that costs $30,000 to buy, but still requires the maintenance budget of a $150,000 exotic. The market knows this. The market is cruel, but it is rational. It prices these cars based on the ticking time bomb hidden within them. That is why you see such catastrophic drops in value. A Range Rover can lose half its value in 3 years, not because people don't want them, everyone wants to drive a Range Rover, but because people are terrified to own them. This fear is well-founded. If you talk to independent mechanics, the people who see these cars when the glamour has worn off, they will tell you stories that sound like horror fiction. They talk about timing chain guides that disintegrate inside the engine, requiring the entire body of the car to be lifted off the frame just to access the repair. They talk about electrical ghosts where screens go black, warning lights dance like Christmas decorations, and the car simply refuses to proceed because a single voltage reading was slightly out of range. This is the fragile complexity trap. The car is so smart, so interconnected, that a minor failure in one system can cascade into a total shutdown. It is an engineering marvel, yes, but it is an incredibly brittle one. And this brittleness breaks the trust between the machine and the human. A luxury car is supposed to serve you. It is supposed to make your life easier. But when a Range Rover enters its middle age, the dynamic flips. You begin to serve the car. You start listening for strange noises every time you start the engine. You hesitate to take it on long road trips because you don't trust it to get you home. The status symbol becomes a source of anxiety. There is nothing luxurious about waiting for a tow truck on the side of the highway, no matter how nice the leather seats are while you wait. This reality bleeds into the public consciousness. Even people who know nothing about cars know that Range Rovers break. It has become a cultural trope, a punchline. And in the luxury market, reputation is currency. When the reputation collapses, the value follows. We also have to look at the competitive landscape to understand why this crisis is so acute for Range Rover specifically. For a long time, they were the only game in town. If you wanted a true luxury SUV, you bought a Range Rover. But today, the market is flooded. You have the Porsche Cayenne, which brought German reliability and build quality to the segment. You have the Lexus LX, which is effectively a Land Cruiser in a tuxedo, a vehicle that will likely outlive its owner. When a buyer looks at a 5-year-old Range Rover versus a 5-year-old Lexus, the choice is between a glamorous gamble and a sure thing. The Lexus might not have the same soul, the same British charm, or the same badge prestige, but it will start every morning. The contrast highlights the engineering failure even more sharply. It proves that you don't need to sacrifice reliability to build a luxury SUV. It proves that the Range Rover's fragility isn't an inevitable consequence of its capability. It is a choice, or at least a failure to prioritize the right things. There is also a deeper, almost philosophical failure in how these cars are constructed. It feels as though they are designed to be disposable. In an era where sustainability is a buzzword, building a machine that becomes economically unviable to keep on the road after 10 years is a massive failure. We see perfectly straight bodies, pristine interiors, and functioning transmissions sent to the scrapyard simply because the cost to fix a complex engine issue or an electrical demon exceeds the value of the car. It is a waste of resources and a waste of engineering talent. A car that was celebrated as a triumph of design becomes trash, not because it is worn out, but because it is too complicated to save. This cycle of depreciation creates a fascinating, albeit sad, subculture. You see the aspirational trap. The low resale value lures in buyers who have always dreamed of the badge but couldn't afford the sticker price. They see a Range Rover selling for the price of a Honda Civic and think they've found the deal of a lifetime. They buy into the dream, only to be crushed by the first repair bill. It turns what should be a joyous ownership experience into a financial nightmare. These owners then dump the car back onto the market, often with the problems unfixed, further diluting the pool and driving prices down even further. It is a death spiral. The lower the value goes, the less likely owners are to maintain them properly, which leads to more broken cars, which lowers the reputation, which lowers the value. Jaguar Land Rover is not blind to this. They have announced reimagined strategies, promising better quality control and a shift to electric architectures. They know that they are bleeding customers to brands that respect the owner's time and wallet. But turning a battleship takes time, and changing a reputation takes even longer. For now, the legacy of the past decade hangs heavy over the brand. Every time a new model is launched, the automotive press raves about the wood, the leather, and the technology. But the comment sections and the forums are filled with previous owners warning, "Just wait." There is a tragic beauty to it all. If you look at a Range Rover purely as an object of design, it is a masterpiece. The lines are reductive and elegant. The interior is a sanctuary. When it is working perfectly, it offers a driving experience that is genuinely hard to match. It has a soulfulness that the clinical German competitors often lack. That is why we keep coming back. That is why, despite the horror stories, despite the data, despite the warnings, people still line up to buy them. We want to believe that this time will be different. We want to believe that the beauty isn't skin deep, but the cold, hard numbers of the resale market tell the truth that we try to ignore. They are the scorecard of engineering success, and on that scorecard, Range Rover is failing. The depreciation is not just a monetary loss, it is a measurement of trust lost. It is the market stating, collectively and loudly, that these machines are not built to last. They are built to dazzle, to impress, and then to fade away. So, where does that leave the icon? It remains a symbol, certainly. But the meaning of that symbol has shifted. It no longer just represents wealth and capability. It represents a specific kind of excess, the willingness to burn money for a fleeting experience. It stands as a monument to style over substance, a case study in what happens when engineering ambition outpaces durability. As you watch one glide past you on the highway, looking majestic and imperious, you can't help but admire it. It is undeniable. But as it fades into the distance, you aren't left wishing you owned it. You are left with a different feeling entirely, a quiet sense of relief that the keys are in someone else's pocket.